And welcome back to Amateur Hour with Aaron. I'm Aaron Maguire from Live Streaming Events, and today I have Dean Samet from Evolve Driving, and we're going to be talking more about sim assessments, driving, all that kind of stuff, and transferring it onto the track. So welcome, Dean.
And for those that aren't too sure which one's which, I've got my name tag so you can see, oh, I better go on that side. That's how you know who's who.
I don't have one, so... and I don't have anything that has my name on it. Anyway, so thanks for coming on this remote video call because we're still in lockdown here in Melbourne. And so today we're going to go through my lap on my sim at Sandown, and then you're going to tell me how great I was.
Yeah, and just on that, we are in lockdown, but this is actually a very similar version to what we do. Even without lockdown, we could do this same structure, whether it be for sim racing or whether it be for proper on-track driving where someone has an onboard video that they've got. This is the same style of assessment that we would do for them, where we've received the video, assessed it, write up the report, send it through, and then go together on Zoom or whatever to have a chat about it, so that we've got that in-person discussion point as well. So yeah, regardless of COVID, lockdown or anything, this is still the same format and we can provide when we do our online coach, whether it be for sim racing or for on-track assessment.
Great. All right, well, let's jump in, and we're just going to play the video. It's got no sound on it, so we're going to be able to chat over top of it. And it's just going to show the lap, which is about a minute 28, I think, roughly about that. Anyway, let's go. It's obviously coming out.
All right, so
great.
And this lap is being done in an E30 M3. So in real life, it's a fantastic car to drive. It'll be a lot of fun.
If you can afford
even though this is your out lap, it still shows a lot of things that you're doing that we can try to aim to tidy up on.
Mm-hmm.
The track itself here, this is using Assetto Corsa. It's got a few things that aren't quite real life, so there's a couple of things, little bumps aren't noticeable here, but also the curbs look to be a lot different to real life, especially that sequence between turn 2 and 3. That's probably the area that looks much more different to the real life sort of stuff. And also, I don't know where those power lines come from. I don't think there are power lines that run across there, but anyway. There's a few things that are quite accurate. That's actually quite accurate going down the hill there in terms of the curbs and stuff. But then again, curbs like that on the left and things are a little bit different. The track has changed recently in that over on that turn 6 coming down the hill, there is a lot more runoff area. It's changed a little bit there. Change the angle of the circuit or anything like that.
So would you say that in terms of the curbs, are they higher in real life or are they flatter in real life?
Yeah, so the curbs in this are probably a little flatter than what they are in real life. The section between turn 2 and 3, not only are the curbs a little bit flatter, but also the actual angle of the road looks to be a little bit more open in Assetto Corsa here as well.
Yeah.
In real life, that's a little bit tighter and harder to negotiate than it is in what we've seen on Assetto Corsa. Okay. But we were able to look more at technique in this situation rather than worry so much about the actual exact lines. The exact lines kind of come from getting the technique right, so it kind of works hand in hand.
Okay.
One of the things with the assessment is that before we even look at the track itself and how you're dealing with the track and each turn, we look at the overall picture of what are you doing as a driver and what sort of techniques do you maybe need to tune up a little bit to start with, rather than fine-tuning it towards an exact thing to do at turn 1 or turn 2. Here's what you need to do as a driver, as a general technique change or a fundamental base that you're trying to establish. And so one of the things for yourself that we were looking at initially, it's the braking. We need to really get that braking sorted out so that you've got first of all, consistency with how you're using the brake pedal. And seeing on Assetto Corsa and certain other videos that we can use, it has brake data on there, so it shows the actual pressure you've put on and when you've come off and how you come off and all that sort of stuff. So one of the first things for you, you need to get more consistent on the way you use the brakes, and you need to be hard early and easing off that brake as you're getting towards the corner. In this version that we've seen here, you were probably a little bit easy getting onto the brake, getting its highest pressure a little bit too far down the line, down the braking zone, and coming off it too quick.
Okay.
And so we want to try to change that around a little bit, and that's been made in the notes.
Yeah.
Also, a couple of occasions you tend to brake once and then sort of realise maybe that it's a bit early and you come off the brake and then go back on the brake. Two problems with that. One is you tend to always then misjudge the second brake point and you've come off for too long. And the other thing is the balance of the car changes so dramatically when you're on the brake and off the brake that braking zone becomes a real mess. And that leads into a mess on the turn-in and leads to a mess at the apex and then leads to a mess at the exit. So we just need to tidy that up as well, which comes back to the consistency. Picking a brake point, work with that brake point and use your braking technique all the way through. If you find that you are getting to the corner a little bit too slow, then instead of not using the brake enough or coming off and going back on, next lap around, you adjust the brake point by a little bit. And we always say a little bit because if you change it by a lot, then you end up in a position where you then start out braking yourself. So your movement from braking at the 200 metres, don't just go straight to 150 metres, you're going to go to 190 metres and then 180 metres, or it might even be 195. It might be just 5 metre increments,
okay.
But you need to just work on finding that, using the brakes the same way each time and matching that up to when it fits into the correct speed for the entry of the corner.
Okay.
One of the other things that you're doing as a driver before we get to the track is the use of the throttle. So quite often, as I mentioned, you were coming off the brakes really quickly and actually doing that really quite early in the turn phase. And as an instinct, a lot of people instantly go back to the throttle. In a race car environment, people tend to think they need to be on the throttle all the time to go fast. But it's only valuable to be on the throttle if the car is set up correctly and it's the right time to get on the throttle, where you can actually utilise the benefit that acceleration will give you. If you're still trying to turn into the corner, you haven't actually got the car to get to the apex and heading towards where you want to go, getting the throttle actually will be a negative because it's going to take away weight from the front. And if the front tyres are still trying to turn, then you end up fighting the turning part of the phase of the corner, and it becomes a longer turn phase, and it'll be more you have to be much more gentle getting to full throttle. Whereas if you wait a little bit longer, don't get on the throttle until the car is actually turned, then you can actually get full throttle a lot earlier and get a better drive out of the corner. It also helps you to identify the corner speed you can drive at. If you are turning into the corner a little bit too slow and then accelerating through the corner, that's actually masking or fudging the mistake you've made. If you can actually accelerate through the corner, then you've probably gone in too slow. Now you're going to make up a lot more time by going in a little bit faster and getting to the throttle that little bit later to match up to the right point, rather than trying to overdrive it and mask the problem that you've created.
Right.
And we see this a lot with people where they'll mask it. They'll get on the throttle too early. They'll think they're going fast because the car's moving around a lot because it's not well balanced, and they'll feel that that's as fast as they can go because the car is on its limit or beyond its limit. But really what they've done is basically just covered up the problem, and instead of identify that problem and come around the next lap and fix it, they're just continuing to drive like that, thinking they're on their limit.
Right, okay. So is it...
One of the... sorry.
Yeah, so is it okay to have no throttle or brake during that corner phase?
Yes, it is okay. Some people have this theory where if you're not on the brake, you should be on the throttle. And in a lot of cases, that is correct. However, especially in your learning phase, it's not a problem to have a little bit of period of time where you are actually off the brake and off the throttle, because you're just trying to understand the balance of the car and the speed of the car. If you get off the brake and straight back to the accelerator, especially early days, most people overuse the accelerator. and so it's beneficial to just stay off it more so than getting a little bit of throttle on. As you get more adept and you get more skill, you can actually then bring that little bit of throttle, and we're talking that sort of 5 to 10% throttle at most, at the end of the braking zone towards the apex. But again, it needs to be worked out with regards to the balance of the car, because if your car gets upset by 10% throttle, as in the weight comes off the front too much if you've used that much throttle, or if your throttle is quite touchy and it isn't very easy to be that precise with how much throttle you're using, then it's best to not use it at all. It's best to just wait until you get to the apex and go. Okay. When we say get to the apex, it's not exactly the apex as a particular line on the road. It's the angle of the car as it's going through the corner. Is it actually now able to unload and get to the exit of the corner, or is it still trying to get the turn finished? It's kind of the connection with the use of the throttle comes with the connection of the steering angle. So if you've still got steering angle and you're trying to finish a bit of steering, you're not going to bring any throttle in. If you've got that steering and you've gone to the full steering angle and you're ready to start coming off the angle, then by all means you can start to bring the throttle back in and start to get that sort of exit phase of the corner started off.
Okay, so what you're saying is leave the accelerator until you're starting to open up your steering wheel, is that right?
That's right, yep.
So and as you get better at it, I'm trying to go around a corner and then I'm thinking I'll get on the accelerator, then is that the chance of it understeering or dragging wide increased?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, okay. Yep. And then you've made a mistake that you need to fix somehow, and that might generally be that you've got to come back off the throttle or not continue to push the throttle, and that then means that you're going to be slower on the exit part of it. Again, it's very difficult if you didn't have this information fed to you from a coach or observed or analysed by a coach. Often you'll think you're going fast because there is a lot of action going on. Sometimes, though, that action it's the wrong action. It's caused because you've made a mistake and you need to actually go, hang on a minute, I'm doing too much. The car's not ready for that much. I need to just take that edge off. And that's why we try to, I suppose in some ways, peel people's, what would you call it, enthusiasm back a little bit, because when they're on the track they do get quite enthusiastic and try and do so much work and accelerate, brake, trying to do everything all at once, and it all happens very quickly. We try to simplify that a little bit so they can break it down into the smaller increments and analyse themselves a little bit about what's happening with the balance of the car and the corner speed, etc. And then as they get better, they'll close up the distance between the end of the brake zone and the actual getting back to the throttle zone and all that sort of, the angle of the car and steering and all that sort of thing.
Sure. I guess it's easy once you when you see someone like Walter Rule or any kind of rally driver, and they're all kind of this and that and everything, and you think, oh, is that the way it's supposed to be? But when you're on tarmac, and then you watch a supercar driver, and even I saw Greg Murphy, I think it was, and he was going around Sandown, and it was just very, very calm, very quite boring to watch. But I guess that's if it's boring to watch, then it must be quite smooth, and it's not erratic.
Yeah, because they're not fixing mistakes. One of the things that helps to link all of those things together that I've just discussed is your vision. And even on a sim, you need to be looking as far ahead as possible. Now, I know that you use VR on yours, and that's a great way of getting a bit of depth perception on a sim setup. Some screen setups are not going to give you as much depth perception as you get on VR or on a curved screen and all the other versions that there are. But that vision, and it's related to the real life as well, it's the thing that links it all together. If you're looking in the right spots, regardless of your depth perception, if you're looking in the right spots, then you're going to start to pick the brake points, the turn points, all of these things, the connections that we're looking for between the steering angle and the throttle position and all that sort of stuff. If you're looking in the right areas, those connections are going to come a little bit easier. If you're looking short, then you go basically getting to a point and trying to then do something, it's too late. It's got to be looking as far ahead as possible, reading and analyse the information that's ahead of you there, whether it be curbs, turn-in points, angles of the road, camber, etc., and putting all that together in that brain that then will assess and analyse the information you've given it, and then the output comes here where you're actually braking, accelerating and steering and all that sort of stuff at the right time to match up those things. But don't keep looking at the corner, look through the corner. It's a really important part where a lot of people, and on some drive days, they do put out a cone at the apex point, and people go, oh yeah, that's a really handy thing. Well, it's not, because most people tend to then just look at that cone all the way up to that cone and they haven't looked at the exit point. We want you to be looking through the corner, not at the corner, but through the corner. And that way you're going to then identify where you want to go, and that'll help you to actually steer the car only as much as you need, and it'll actually then help you to piece together when you can get that unwinding the steering and driving out of the corner to maximise the lap time. So that's a couple of things.
I have been using that a lot, and I guess doing a lot of these endurance races on Assetto Corsa Competizione, is that you get an hour to do it, and it's like 28 laps or so, and then halfway through I'm going, I've got to look through the corner. All this time I've just been braking, accelerating, racing around, opening and steering, yes, but I've always been looking at the corner, and I'm thinking, I'm in a GT2 or something, and I'm doing 200k an hour or something, and you just think, hang on a second, I've got to look through the corner. So then I start looking through the corner, and you think, okay, it makes such a difference. Especially, I've been driving at Silverstone lately, and I hated that track until I got used to it, and now it's amazing. But you still have to look through the corner and go, okay, I can actually accelerate much sooner than I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.